So let's kick this off. There's 3 of us in the room. I'm going to introduce myself first. My name is Plastician. I'm a DJ, producer, label owner, 14-year Rinse FM resident, Dubstep Grime ambassador. I'm going to pass the mic over to the next guest.
You better go in after that.
Oh, yeah. My name's Hatcha. Where's my CV? Hold up. My name's Hatcha, DJ, producer, record label owner. I was here from day one. First dubstep DJ. I will crown that.
Yeah, I'll let you have that one.
I'll have that one. This was my first MC, unfortunately, for me.
Go on, Crazy.
Wasn't my first DJ though.
It gets quicker as he gets older.
No. Oh, what is it?
I'll hand it over to you. You can shut me down.
I'm Crazy D. I'm an MC. Yeah, that's about it. I can produce, but I don't. I can DJ, but I don't. You know what I mean?
I think it's best you don't. Let's get it rolling.
Yeah.
So let's go back to the beginning and start from the very beginning. You were both like heavily involved in the garage scene. Dark Garage was doing its thing. Garage on the whole was doing bits. It was going in so many different directions. But what do you think was like the beginning of dubstep, if as you remember it? When did it feel like this is the beginning of something else?
Well, I suppose, if you don't mind, I'll answer that. Because I was in the record shop.
You going first, yeah.
Because in the record shop, I could see it happening. No, it was mad because we, you know, obviously when I first started working in the record shop, from shopping there at a young age and then actually started to work there, it was just mad. Over a certain couple of years, you know, I was introduced to Benny Hill, LB, ZEB Bias, Futuristics, from all them boys, and they was doing this called two-step garage. You know, Zeb was playing all the Sidewinder stuff and all of these stuff, you know, Reflex Action Like a Snake and Neighborhood and all that kind of stuff. All of that stuff, yeah, all of his label like that, Chris. That was all, at them times, Slimzy and them boys would have danced. They were the Grime Kings on Sidewinders, you know, and it was them boys that were playing these odd tracks. And they was getting onto the tape packs. So once you get onto the tape packs, the kid, you got to remember
sold records, didn't it?
Sold records back in the day, you know. And them tape packs were gold, mate. You got in there and you had it nice, you were laughing. So people started coming into the shop asking for this darker stuff, you know. Oh, you got this track that Slimzy played, or you got this thing that Master Step played. Because Master Steps used to play a few of the, and Fonty. They was all like digging into that little crate. And it started creeping onto some of my radio shows.
On Flight?
On Upfront. I was on Upfront FM then first. And that's when I started playing all the ZEB Bias stuff and the LB stuff. And then it wasn't until Ollie, Scream and Benga, Bennett, and they started, because they was coming in at a very young age, because Hijack was working in the shop, Ollie's older brother. And obviously Ollie would come in, buy records and stuff, but they used to listen to my shows on Upfront FM and stuff. And then they started getting into music production, just randomly, Music 2000 on the PlayStation. We all owned it.
The good old days.
We all owned it.
My music was horrendous on it.
No, it wasn't. I think we played a few off mini disc.
I definitely never bounced any of them.
Still got gems, trust me.
But yeah, so I just see it coming through the shop really, and just, you know, the more and more it crept onto tape packs, the more and more people started to ask for that darker kind of garage. And then I started incorporating it into my sets, and the youngsters from Croydon were listening to them. And then that's when Ollie and Benny and loads of others, they just all started just
trying to get on your show, basically.
Yeah,
giving you tunes, hoping you play
Ollie
them,
would come down for CD. He was like, right, if he ever didn't play a track off that CD, he wouldn't come down the shop for a week. I'm like, where you been? Where's my music? Oh, you did play my bloody track. God, did you? I was listening all night, and I had school in the morning. Sorry, you know. But that's when I see it start, and then obviously, you know, how long do we go on with the conversation? You know,
when would you say dubstep? Forget the two-steppy changing of the times. When would you say that dubstep? When we started to thrash that
I'd
word
say
around.
Plastic People.
There we go.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it was Velvet Rooms, because Forward started at Velvet Rooms.
Yeah, I definitely attend.
And that was more breaks and
I still think that era was the changing of the times there. Yeah, when they started
the Big Apple
Velvet
Christmas
Rooms.
Party as well.
Yeah,
in Croydon.
Boom.
When LB played live.
Just the Apple thing just wasn't enough. Hatch worked in the shop. So he saw
Ammunition, Neil
more.
Jaloffi, once they started releasing as well, started up Temper, it just come together just naturally. No one planned any of this.
I would say 2002. I would say
around them times.
Yeah,
Forward
I remember
launch was
we used to
01.
have meetings. Remember when we used to have the meetings, the forward meetings.
Yeah.
And then there was one time
Oris,
where
Jada Flex.
Oris,
Yeah.
Jada, all them boys were
boom.
there.
And then that word started getting
Slaughter
thrashed
Mob.
about. What do you think about dubstep though? And everyone was like,
What's that mean?
We
Yeah.
were still a bit like, we're garage. I don't know about that.
I think
Everything's
forward. I think
garage.
forward.
You know what I mean?
I think the name forward blew up before the
Everyone
name
was talking
dubstep.
about forward
Yeah.
beats. Forward beats
Forward
was the thing,
beats,
wasn't it?
Yeah.
You know, I think forward actually blew up, and then that was, you know, if you wanted to.
Even like when we say blow up as well, like when we say blew up, like forward for years, when it was like about 40 of us.
Yeah.
Like, let's be real.
All from
It
the
was for a
estate.
long time. It was literally
Sometimes less than that.
Yeah, it
You know what
was.
I mean?
All in a limo on our way up there.
Yep. Thanks to you
Divs.
sorting the limo out because it was cheaper than everyone
I was
getting
like,
a taxi.
listen, if we all chip in a tenner, we can drink all the way up there, smoke what we want, and sit in a limo.
No,
and
he
have a-
was if you was in your one. I was in
Yeah.
the one in the back, and they wouldn't let us do anything,
yeah.
mate, because you took all the booze out of it, and we were stuck in the back with the
That was artwork.
play Martha.
Blame
Yeah, I was
Rafa.
always alone now, so I always drove. So
Yeah,
I
yeah.
missed that as well. So,
That was actually like how I met a lot of people in them limo trips actually, and I
Yeah.
got collared because like when my music started getting played at Forwards, and you
Hard
played
graft.
Hard getting in the
graft.
limo
Still
on the way
one.
back was
Chrissy,
like,
that is still the
did
one.
you make that tune?
Yeah.
Did you make that? And I'm like, yeah. And after that, I became friends with that.
Yeah,
Was it.
innit?
You was in.
Everyone was like,
But I remember
he
you from
knows what he's
school
doing.
because you was the smallest person in school.
I was, yeah.
You was literally. I was like, he's not old enough to.
I'm
be
probably
in-
still smaller than most of the kids.
He
at that
was
school.
like this big, and we're going in assembly. I'm like,
Says he's about
joking.
2 inches taller than me.
it
I know,
sounded good
innit?
though, didn't it?
Literally.
It did sound good.
did,
I'll
it
give
did
you that
sound
one.
good.
But yeah, we went to school together. This is another thing as well. Like a lot of us were kind of interlinked in different weird
Yeah.
ways. Like
Yeah.
my mum worked with Mala.
Yeah,
My mum
okay.
worked with Mala. Then I went to college, did art at college, was in the same class as Loafer.
Then you
I used to play
college
football
was
with
Ollie,
Dean and
studio.
Darren. Then I went college with Ollie and Benga. Benga like dropped out after the first day.
Yeah, of course it is.
We've got too much to do indoors, bruv.
But yeah, we were all weirdly I think that's Croydon in general though. A lot of
Yeah.
us came from that area. We were all hanging out in the record shop, bumping into like people like Chef at house parties on the
Yeah.
Croydon house party circuit as well.
Ted.
Mad. But in terms of like going back to that sound and that time, and we talked about how it kind of evolved from garage and all people were playing tunes. What do you think was like the first tune really for you? And I'll say what one I think it was.
Go on, Em, you go first.
For me, the Horsepower remix of Log On, Elephant Man, was like the first thing I was like, this sounds like something else. This doesn't sound like dark garage. It sounds like there's like a dancehall vibe in there that I hadn't heard quite as like obviously in the dark two-step
I still
era.
thought that was garage.
You still thought of it as garage, yeah?
Yeah, because the
'cause you're old.
instrumental was
Yeah.
getting played in garage raves.
It was a
You
bit
know what I mean?
slower, but
Yeah.
but the same vibe,
Yeah,
yeah.
you know what I mean?
Maybe
So,
with the vocal on, that was maybe what I was hearing slightly
me
different.
from being from a bashment background anyway, I'm like, that was normal. If you know what I mean? That whole verse thing over the top of it. So I don't know. I would have to say, and people might be shocked, but it was a song that I didn't really like when it first come out. Request Line.
Request Line. So that far along the line, that was when you were like, this is it.
Yeah,
God, blimey.
because it had changed dramatically now.
'Cause
It
that's
doesn't
what
sound like garage.
that's like 05.
Doesn't sound like, you know what I
Roughly.
mean? Because I think they were still heavily influenced by percussion and drums and da-da-da, which was garage. You know what I mean? Like, as soon as they cut all that out, it was a totally different vibe.
So
Dark.
if we
horror show.
I was just going to
Horror
say
show,
that was the
lo-fi.
first like half step. But I think
dreaded
for me,
that
like
tune.
the
every
first
time
half
they come
step
on, the
tune,
dance would go like,
yeah,
it went
flat.
from to everyone's just like, now
Put your hands in your pocket, put your head up.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, it was weird.
In terms of like that dubstep sound, I feel like Horror Show was definitely like the first half time.
Yeah.
But I think that came
That was
from
a dilemma.
Wonder What in the grime sound. Like that What was like the half step. And then Horror Show came shortly after that. Wonder What probably influenced that. We'd have to ask Loafer. But I felt like it came at the same time. But in the dubstep world, Horror Show was definitely like the first half time.
Yeah.
Like 140 BPM, but sounds like 70.
Yeah.
Skank.
Big up Loafer.
Skank.
Yeah, I mean that was
Big up
that
Scream
was
as well.
Skank was
Not
like
to say I don't like none.
2003.
Those
That was
two
early.
tunes, but
03.
yeah, I love them.
The first
Skank,
release
Benga.
on Big Apple
That
Records.
was, yeah, the first release. That was to be fair, the first track that actually really got me into the dark garage was Reflex Action Like a Snake. And I heard a DJ on Upfront FM play it called South Central.
Oh yeah.
Remember South Central?
man.
good,
wicked producer. as
wicked,
well.
and he used to produce really good.
Oh,
like
mate.
he was almost like Steve Gurley, Ray, all that
Isn't
kind
that,
of like.
is that Mike
He
Milrain?
could play as well.
Same guy. Is that the same person?
That might be, I
feel like
But
it
I know
might
he
be.
He had a few aliases.
Mike
South
Milrain.
Central.
He did Urban Myths and stuff like that as well.
Might
Like,
be.
I
I
think
think you're
I'm
close. Yeah,
coming
it might
over
just be.
We'd have to Google it, but
Before this interview started, we said, right, everyone put their phone on silent.
It was on silent. It was just humming.
No, then Crazy said, oh, in a minute, yes, we're going to hear vibrations.
I did say that, didn't I?
Who's doing it? Out of
So
all
was I lying then? No, I wasn't lying. All right.
but yeah,
Oh, man, don't worry, it's on silent. Don't worry, professional.
Mine's on silent. It's just humming. All right.
so that ZEB Bias, it's called what, standard hoodlum issue,
Hoodlum,
isn't it?
yeah.
Oh yeah. So when you like, how did it get from that to like? Because that was still to me dark garage.
What I was doing, so I was using them tracks as references.
Yeah, I was into the bingo stuff.
All the bingo
yeah,
from
everyone loved
Zinc,
that, yeah.
like they were tracks we was using as reference to give to Benny, to give to Ollie, you know. And then that's when they was making their sound, not ripping them off, but you know, to a certain, you know, just I don't know what they done, but whatever they done was magic. 'Cause, you know, Ollie and Benny were bringing in CDs every day with 10 tracks on that I've never heard before, and that was daily. You know,
Yeah.
Especially bingo.
But
Bingo was making like 3 a week then, something like that.
Yeah.
3 a night,
Three a
Yeah.
night, yeah.
It's
something
true.
like that.
madness.
You didn't go nowhere, so
So Oni, I've got. What was it like at the time being a part of this new sound and how it was growing? Like, did you feel like things were growing? Because I remember feeling like,
I was skint.
yeah.
Dub
I
plates
remember
It
every
was like
weekend.
this needs to happen soon.
it did
Yeah.
it not?
Like,
For,
I
when
used
it
to broke us
for
all.
I
years,
used to
didn't
drop
it?
It broke
Code
us all
9
for
home,
years,
yeah,
mate.
from Forward almost every
Camberwell.
Forward, yeah, because he lived in Camberwell. I was in Dulwich then, East Dulwich, Peckham, whatever, and yeah, we used to talk all the way back. Like he just quit teaching as well, so he was like, "Listen,
This needs to work.
yeah, I need to pay the rent." You know what I mean? Like it's all fun and games, but we need to start actually
Earning
making
some money.
something from this. You know what I mean? Like
Because for years it was literally
all
like
in.
Forward and the odd bit here and there in like
Right.
Herbal and stuff like that.
Mass.
Mass was like 06.
Yeah, it was
wasn't
third base, wasn't it, downstairs?
Third base. That was what 05, 06 DMZ
still
started.
coming
So like for a few years we were just doing Forward. Obviously I'd done the filthy dub bits, and then they had like I think like Slaughter Mob had their night at Herbal, occasionally Thriller Funk. But other than that, there was nothing until like Pinch opened up in Bristol.
That's it.
I remember that.
And I
Night. That was
think-
a good
I think
night.
my
that was.
first-
Oxjam was the first thing I did with Pinch down there in Trinity.
No, he had a good thing down there,
Oh,
Pinch, for a
mate.
couple of years, didn't
That
he?
was
We all used
amazing,
to
I'll
go
tell
to.
He was the first person to book me out of London,
Yeah.
and I didn't think anyone in Bristol would know
Slammed.
what we were doing. And I was surprised how many people were at
It's packed.
sub-loaded party.
Yeah,
That was it,
packed.
sub-loaded.
Fekla.
Yeah.
I've actually
I
got
reckon
video
did
footage
Fekla.
of that somewhere.
Oh, yeah.
You're on the mic.
Hey.
Yeah, I've got a recording of that.
Fecla's the boat, innit?
Yeah, yeah.
of course. Yeah.
But yeah, I did for a few years feel like we weren't
Chasing our
making
tails,
any.
mate.
Yeah, we weren't making any progress, and then it was almost like overnight people got it. It just clicked, like the Dubstep Wars show or Marianne Hobbs show. And
That was a
then
big help for everybody. That was a big leap.
and then literally like the DMZ night that followed that. What was it? Maybe a week later or
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah.
The first
it was
birthday.
third base, when it downstairs for a couple of
Yeah,
ones.
and that first DMZ after that Dubstep Wars show, there was a queue outside.
Round the-
I'd never
round the
seen.
block.
Went
I've
round
never
past
seen
the
nothing
I'd
like
like,
it.
wow, we got
Watch this
queued.
one, right? As
Man.
I got there, I usually get there about midnight or just before midnight, and as I've got there and I'm approaching it, I'm making phone calls because I'm like, why are they not letting nobody in? Like,
Yeah, what's
why is
going
everyone
on?
outside?
Like, no, you
Like,
can't get
this
in.
is- I'm impressed with how much people's outside. I'm like, wow,
Yeah.
there's a lot of, and then they're like, oh no, it goes all the way around. I was like, you're crazy. So I run to the front now. I've gone in. I'm like,
What
why?
happened?
Yeah, why are you not letting nobody? And then they open the door, and the mass of people that was inside and to the back of the door. You know, like as you open the door, back
You couldn't open the door, you had
backs
to
were
push your
there.
way in.
You know what I mean? So I was like, what
It
the
went-
hell?
it
How are they
literally,
all getting in
literally
outside?
went from like 50, 60 people at
Yeah.
Plastic People to like
5,
300,
6.
400 and
Crazy.
200 outside.
Yeah,
and
it
then
was crazy.
everything after that, wasn't it? Like
Stairs, well, everything
Yeah.
was
Do
slammed.
you remember
tour
what
of
they
every
did?
DMB rave,
Do you remember
every
they
university
locked it
event.
off, and then they opened up upstairs,
Yeah.
and everyone moved upstairs. Like,
Was that same night or was
yeah,
that the next?
because that
yeah.
only happened once.
Joe
Let me tell
Nice
you.
was playing at the time. I remember it because I wasn't playing that night. I just came along, and I remember Joe Nice was playing, and there was like a door behind the decks, and Mala like opened it, and it was like you go up there, and you were in the mass upstairs, innit? And then they had everyone DJing in that like the big like
the podium
thing.
And you had like the seats that went around.
Because it was just like, well, we're going in there, and then obviously every time the rave happened in there after that was not like that.
Yeah.
But the first time it was like Julius Caesar up in the like
You lot
the high
was up
heavens.
I remember him saying,
I wasn't up there.
where's it?
I was down
on the
the
stage bit at the bottom.
on
Yeah.
the stage by myself. Oh,
Mad
mate.
times.
See that photo that Georgina put in her book of that same room you're talking about? Pokes is standing in the crowd on that exact
Yes.
night.
You would do though. You don't want to be up in that like
No.
on the pedestal as it was. So next up, what was your favourite venue for dubstep to play in? There's some good ones in there. For me, I've got to go with Plastic People.
I was about to say, it's this got to be there really because
Plastic People when it was Plastic People.
Yeah.
Once they started fucking with a booth and moving it around, they put the DJ booth opposite the bar. I was like, you just
that
killed.
didn't last long though,
I
did
was
it?
like, fucking,
that
what you've
lasted
done?
all
You've
of
murdered
about
everything,
2
mate.
weeks.
But to be fair, right, they put more in, but they turned it down because of the neighbours was complaining.
But the restaurant upstairs and all that
They
was
had a
moaning.
session where they turned everything up, and I tell you now,
The bar, everything.
you've never
bottles
heard
off.
nothing like it in there. It was so like, oh wow, well, this is how it should be all the time. But,
Rumbling.
Yeah, but they couldn't do that. So yeah, that was
I don't think I've really experienced a space like it since. Like,
No.
and I think it's not just about the sound, but it was the
Have you not
vibe in there and the
seen-
time.
everywhere's still trying
Free
to
smoking
recreate it.
band
Used to
as
like the
well.
end,
Smoking
man.
band
The end
They're
was
still
good.
trying to recreate it.
The
now.
end was great.
The end was
Yeah.
good. We had some good nights in the end,
Yeah,
man.
yeah.
That booth was mad. I nearly fell out of that booth.
I've got a story for
on.
the end. All right,
Please.
Careful.
Keep it
I
clean.
was on the mic. It's always clean. So I was on the mic, and we was in what's the room where you first walk in? That's room 2, isn't it?
The bar, yeah,
Where the
yeah.
bar is.
Yeah. So right, I was on the mic in the corner there, on the mic, and I think you walked in, Hatch. You walked in with artwork, yeah. And artwork's come over. You've all said hello. Da, 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 da. So I've carried on the mic. Da, da, da. About 5 minutes later, an older gentleman walked over, and he's watching me. He's just standing there watching me, and I'm thinking, when I say an older gentleman, he's like in his 70s, maybe. Yeah. So I was like, okay, he looks a bit out of place, but
He's
no.
on the Mandy. Oh, I should have said that. I don't know who it is.
It's coming.
I'm sorry.
All right, so he's staring at me, and I'm like, oh, this is a bit weird. But, you know, people do, innit? They come up to you and see you MC in there, a bit fascinated. Oh, maybe. So I'm thinking, okay, maybe this is what it is. He suddenly reached for the mic. So I've kind of
Crazy's gone
moved
to
away.
nut him.
And I was like, what are you doing? Like, you know, like, okay. I was like, I tried to be all friendly, you know, like, oh, you can't just reach for the mic. Da, 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 da. Anyway, carried on. He's walked off, he's come back, and he's tried to do it again. So this time I've kind of pushed him away, and I was like, no, you can't just walk over to me and try and take the mic. Da, 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 da. It was a bit more rude than that, but that was the gist of it. So I turned to Hatch. Hatch, I think you was going on next, so you was by the decks now. So I've turned to you, and I've gone,
Well, one of my mates.
what was that? Da, 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 da. And you was like, I don't know, carried on doing what he was doing. Arthur's come over. I've gone, oh, did you see that? And he's like, what? And I goes, that guy over there keeps trying to get the mic. He turned to me and went, what, my dad?
I remember, yes. Yeah.
Oh, I'd love to.
Oh my God. So I thought Arthur, being the joker that he is, he's joking, isn't it? So I was like, no, that's not your dad. Da, 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 da. Turns
No,
out-
it was.
It turns out it was his dad. I pushed his dad and everything. Sorry,
mate.
Arthur.
Oh my.
He went like that
sorry.
afterwards. I might have the mic.
I know. Oh,
Kind of got into it already, but like, what are some of your standout memories from like being within the scene? Some of the like
mate,
events.
Oh, I've got to go first, mate. It's got to be them. When we all went, didn't you come with us? We all went to, where did we play in Europe? And I checked everyone in on my AA card. Where was we?
I was there.
I literally
Was it
checked.
not
Can I just say he's done
Croatia?
that in a few
I
places?
checked in the whole fucking tour bus on my AA card. I couldn't oh, mate. I can't believe
Stuff
they
you
let
get away with.
I can't believe they let me do it. I said,
No,
boys,
this
right
is
back
it.
in the. We'd been drinking all the way there, hadn't we?
Oh yeah. How many times did you nearly get arrested on the way to these gigs in Europe and that, like smashing up coaches on the way to Croatia?
I've had a car crash in Sweden. I did a tour with Rusco and the chef, Sheffield.
Oh, I remember hearing about this.
Yeah, on the motorway, and Tricky Kid was driving.
Tricks.
Yeah. And we was on the motorway doing, I don't know what their speed limit is. It was the actual speed limit. It wasn't going
About
faster.
140 then.
Yeah, I mean,
Probably.
so all of a sudden, there was like a car pulling like a horse cart thing. You know the things you put the horses in. I don't know what they're called, but yeah, we basically crashed into the back of that. Hit
With the
that-
horse in it?
No, there's no horse in it.
Oh.
But
Not after
we
that.
hit that over into the middle section. You know, like it's crazy. But it's traffic. I think an accident happened further down, so everybody broke suddenly. You know, like that kind of thing.
Couldn't see it coming.
Yeah, so we kind of just straight into the back of this
It's
thing.
mad,
It was a
it's
rental
like-
as well.
These things that happen on tours that are not even like part of the gig, but
Yeah.
they do stick in your memory
Yeah.
because I think like a lot of gigs come like meshed together, and like, I'm trying to think of like a standout memory from a gig. For me, like two that stick out for me are like going back to Forward. JME's birthday bash was weirdly extremely busy. I don't know if you remember what it was like, but I remember being in the booth. There was a guy at the front. He had like that, remember the Bape hoodie with the skeleton face on
Oh,
it?
yeah.
The zip.
He zipped it up.
Yeah.
And he was going mental.
Yeah.
And he, that big old mixer.
Yeah.
The
He
big
pushed
red
it off,
fucking thing.
and I caught it in the booth, like the whole like thing. I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Skepta was there, God's Gift was there.
They
It
was going
like
in.
pandemonium,
Yeah, of
and there's a
course.
recording of it as well because it was going out live on Rinse at the time, and you can hear it. And then I played like anti-war dub to try and chill it out,
Yeah.
and it didn't.
Didn't help. It didn't help.
It did not help
It got
at all.
worse.
But that was like the most intense few minutes of like, because everyone's like that far away from you as well, and it was like
I
that
remember you
booth
used to get proper jammed in there.
it was like there's hardly any room in the booth, and then that mixer was like twice the size of the
Yeah.
booth on its own, and it
Yeah.
came off the. I didn't know that. I thought that was bolted on.
In its little grid.
Is
That's been there
is
for
this
20
true?
years.
Could he really hold it? I
Yeah.
don't know.
I was like, that. And
Do you remember when they put their first CDJ in?
On the side.
On the side, out of the way. It's over there if you want to use a CD.
Yeah, some of Georgina Cook's photos, you can see everyone's like off to the side like that, and it's like, why is everyone looking over
They're not
there? It's like,
skinning
that's
up.
where the CDs were. Like, when you couldn't afford to cut dubs like 50 times a
They were
week, you had to use the
skinning up.
CDs and
That's
that.
what they was doing. They were skinning up.
Yeah, they were skinning up. That was the best
other bad
days. Like with
stuff,
forwards, like I think that's took a lot out of it. Simple fact that we could go in there, no one bothered us, no one cared about what you were, and everyone.
youth club.
It was like a youth club. Everyone knew each other, but it was slammed every week.
Except I wasn't in my youth, but yeah.
It was.
You
George, come on,
I
George.
wasn't. You lot was.
Yeah, everyone was just skinning up, drinking. It was just a nice vibe. Now everything's so fucking straight back and shirt and tie. Them days are long gone, ain't they?
No? What are you talking about? Where?
Well, you're apart from your illegal parties, but I mean,
Where?
all from Peckham.
No, they're crazy now as well.
Yeah.
It's getting back. It's getting. I feel like the pandemic.
It'd be nice if they let the reins off us a little bit nowadays.
I think, if anything, the plastic people that used to go there
Plastic.
were quite sensible, to be fair. And I think that's what made it work. Everyone had a good time, and you let your hair
Within
down
limits.
as much as you do, but you never saw a fight. You never saw like people losing their minds on, unless it was music wise, you know what I mean? But
I think
yeah.
the few times I did see people kind of like get out of line there at the bar, they would get put in check very quickly by someone else because it was like a members
community.
club.
Yeah, it's like this
if
is we're all
if you
community
start-
here.
Yeah, if you
You
start
start on
acting up,
one,
Yeah,
you're
you
out.
would have got shut
Yeah.
down. Yeah, you did
Yeah.
get shut
I
down.
I
must
remember
have saw-
Beezy had to put.
I see
someone in.
Beezy put someone on
in
his ass.
place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But apart from that, I don't think
Did
I've
that for
seen
me
that
one
trouble.
time as well. I'm not saying.
They were the best days, mate. Good days,
Definitely some good times there. What were the key similarities and differences between the dubstep and the grime scenes back then? Do you remember?
People.
Just the people.
We was all
crowds.
very close, weren't we? I think
We were all
all
mates.
I
But
think
I
with
guess
the-
the events were quite different, right?
Yeah, but we all crossed. Like we was all.
Back then
in
I
and
didn't
out.
know what the difference between grime and dubstep was, apart from I would have said sub bass.
There's a bit more mid-range in the tracks,
You know what I mean?
which didn't come into
Whereas
dubstep.
Yeah.
until a
if
bit
you was
later.
playing what they call
On
grime,
Rinse, I
but
was doing
didn't
an hour
know that.
grime
I
and
was
now
calling it all
dubstep.
dubstep. You know what I mean? I was like, because I'd never heard.
I remember
anyone
being
else
worried about
these
playing
bits.
at Forward the first time I got booked to play at Forward, because back in the day we had like the dubplate.net forum, and I remember seeing a thread of you because you played a Johnny Cash track at Forward, and everyone was like, "What's he playing grime for at Forward? That's not what Forward's about."
That's when things go wrong
And
for me,
I
when
got
people
booked-
start pigeonholing
Yeah.
stuff.
When-
that's that and that's that. You
When
know
I
what
got
mean?
booked to play there, I'd say like 70% of my set was like that kind of sound, and then
Yeah.
like some most of the Croydon dubstep stuff. So when I first got booked to play there, I was worried about it because there was like almost a little bit of an attitude to, or what felt like an attitude for the very small pocket of people that had a voice online. Because back then we didn't have Twitter, didn't have Instagram.
Dubstep forum.
We didn't even have that. This was dubplate.net forum.
Oh, that's it.
Yeah.
That's
Probably
that
about
one,
50
What was
users.
before
on
that?
it.
Bare Files.
That was around the same time, yeah.
Was it?
Around the same time. I think dubplate.net forum was the only place at the time. But there was like, people could hide behind a username. Suddenly everyone had a bit of an opinion on things. And there was definitely like a snootiness from the dubstep crowd towards anything that didn't... Because I think a lot of people that were into like dark garage, you either went into grime or you went into what was the beginning of dubstep. And I think there was this thing that dubstep was like intelligent bass music and grime was like kids music. And that's what I was worried about. Because I used to really like grime. And when I was making it for the crowd that liked dubstep.
But
I'm
I
trying
think
to
that
like
come
build
about
it,
because of
playing at nights,
grime
innit?
probably sounded like, I don't know, a loop turned into a tune.
Yeah, the structure was different.
Yeah, whereas dubstep was more like they had
Story
a
almost.
beginning, a
build
middle,
up. It's
and
built
an
like
end.
dance music,
You know what I
yeah.
mean? Yeah, it was kind of based on...
Grime was
That's
just
like
like
I said, it was
rhythm
based on
based.
garage, innit? That way, because garage was made for DJs, and you'd have an intro that you could mix, and then you'd have a drop, and then you'd have maybe a second drop as well. That's what you'd have in a garage.
It's true.
tune, you know
a
what
lot
I mean?
of the grime
And then,
stuff was almost like straight into the drop.
you see what I'm
And
saying?
like
8 bars.
It's just
8 bars, boom,
If
straight
you was
in.
lucky, you'd have a 16-bar intro on it, and then the rest of it was quite...
Because the kids that
straightforward.
was making it wasn't really concerned about the DJ. It was more about the MC.
And this is
you know
something
what I
we get
mean?
more
Like,
common with
we're
now.
gonna
new songs,
we're gonna
yeah.
tear into this, and we can't wait for it to start. You know what I mean? So so I think that was the main difference between the two. That apart from that,
I feel like the crowds were slightly different as well, because I feel like the dubstep crowd was a little bit more of a like... In those times, in the beginning of playing those events, like the dubstep crowd was more of like an industry heads, producers, label owners.
we didn't have a scene.
It was
Yeah.
like it was just
So
people that
it
were
was
into
It was
just-
very
yeah.
like that.
And
We
then the
didn't
grime
have a
scene,
scene yet.
the
You know
grime
what I mean?
scene still had like the tail end of the garage, so you had that attitude at the dance.
That's
where
because of
everyone
the
was
crews
popping
that you had.
champs.
Yeah.
It came out of the garage like, and there was. I found there was a shitload of trouble at those events as well. Like,
I played at one thing in Brixton, Mass. Yeah, it was about 1999. I think. Was it Page You Go was the first crew in it? Page You Go, yeah. So they played at this thing in Mass, and me and Spidey G, if anybody knows about Spidey G, we was doing a set beforehand. We did a garage thing, and then we came off. We saw when Page You Go came, they all turned up. And we was all like, oh, rah, okay. This is the first time I was actually getting to see them, you know what I mean?
yeah.
So I was like, all right, cool. Let's see what this is all about. I'd been in garage since 95, kind of end of 94 to 95, you know what I mean? So the change from that to seeing this now, I'm from Peckham originally, so it was like, it came full circle. From when I used to go out, it was all bashment. So
Yeah.
you only saw a certain type of crowd, yeah? Let's say, yeah? So when these guys came, when I say the crowd in the place changed dramatically, like, and for younger as well, there was a lot younger, you know
the
what I
whole
mean?
demographic's different.
So different. And I was like, oh, okay, let's see what this is all about. I thought, let me get a drink. I went to the bar in the other room, which we used at
The Brixton Mass third
yeah,
base.
so we used that for second room.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I went in there to get a drink. Literally, as I was in there for 2 minutes, people was running. When I say running out of this room, yeah, like a fire had started. I would pop my head back in, and tills were getting thrown over, and like
Kicked off.
Oh, and I say I'd never seen such a madness in my life. Yeah, I was like, what's happened here?
It was weird. It kind of went with the territory for a little while, and
Yeah.
it did like it got a proper bad rap, which it
Yeah.
eventually shook. I think like didn't
So
have
yeah,
that
I would
thing.
say definitely that way. Yeah, but that again, that was right at the beginning. So
Yeah.
I think a lot of the guys they not long come out of inside, and they got friends in it, and friends of friends, and everybody turns up, and you get everybody in the one place.
Ghetto gets more ghetto.
You know what I mean? It gets a bit excitable. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
But I think our scene, we didn't really. We had more people like, raising an eyebrow first.
Yeah.
Rather than going bow and jumping in, they was more like raise an eyebrow. What's this?
Train spotters.
Yeah,
We was playing
you know
train
what I mean?
spotters, weren't we,
It
for a
was-
few years.
and
It was timid, wasn't it?
This
It
is
was
okay.
a lot of
this is
people were
okay.
almost like scared to dance at forward and stuff like that. Like
People
they would
used to
literally
ask me, how
hood up,
do you dance?
Just sitting there,
and, like,
just, they just
how
seemed
do
very
you
interested.
backpack
for a
on
good-
them.
How
on
do
the
you
dance.
dance? I'm like, really? You're asking me how do you dance to this? I'm
Yeah.
like, how would you dance to any whatever takes you? You know what I mean? Like, it's about throwing shapes, isn't it? So it doesn't even have to be something that someone else appreciates. This is about what you feel, innit? So
Yeah, I think that was the main difference for me. It was just like the feeling of at the dance was a
Yeah.
little bit more edge
Yeah.
at a grind. Like
again,
I was always like
associated more to garage,
more aware of my
whereas
space.
we kind of shifted away from that big time, really. Like, which is weird for me and Hatch anyway, because we came from garage.
Yeah.
So
Imperial Gardens. and them
yeah,
days.
you know what I
Fucking
mean?
hell,
Like,
yeah.
I've seen some real rough times where in garage.
What was that gig? What was that club we used to play at Old Kent Road next to the McDonald's?
The scene,
The Scene.
the scene
Fucking
nightclub,
hell, yeah.
mate.
God, there was
I
some
couldn't get
scenes.
out of there. I was in there like every weekend for about
Yeah.
5 years.
The Scene, mate. That was.
Oh,
the scene
yeah.
at the scene. of
McDonald's
the
every
grind.
weekend.
Yeah, would it straight
20
out?
nuggets, yeah. On the way home.
It's more for the milkshakes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for you, what were the artists that kind of crossed over between the scenes? You know, like we had like grime going on, dubstep, garage, whatever it was going on. What were the artists that kind of like,
At that time,
yeah,
there was only a handful of people doing the grime and dubstep.
together?
Like you, Mark One,
Yep.
Tubby.
Yep.
And
then I guess
Slim was floating
Slim
in
like
about.
the odd bit of Scream
Yeah,
and Banger,
Slim-
didn't he?
Scream
He
was
picked up
chucking
on like
in- yeah.
Virus by Bengo and
Yeah,
a couple
Slim
of
was
bits
chucking
early.
a few bits. Obviously Code 9 and all them lot came a little bit later.
But that was
But they wasn't really
from
grime.
no, from
No,
my
that
experience.
wasn't,
That I would say that was about it because like I remember
Wonder,
like yeah, Wonder.
Wonder was around
This
then,
and
wasn't
then
he?
and
He
then
was
like
doing some
shortly
bits.
down the line, then you'd have like Genius.
Yep, G
and-
would come in.
and-
Slaughter Mob as well.
I guess
Slaughter
that's
Mob,
Slaughter
yeah.
Mob, yeah.
because they had a bit of grime. to
Yeah,
them
there
as
was a
well.
bit- yeah,
They're
there
the
was
MCs
definitely a
and
bit there. But
So-
yeah, I would say that it was quite a small crossover initially, and then like as the sound grew, then naturally MCs were interested in spitting on it. So you got your Skeptors, Jammer,
Imagine
all of that lot.
me being
come
an
through.
MC, yeah, I always spat on it, but
Never wiped
my
his mouth
spitting was
after.
different. My spitting was different. It wasn't about
Well,
the roads or
But also it was the way you spit and the way that like you almost lived in tandem with the DJ and the vibe of the event, whereas
Because
grime MCs come on as like
see, people like try to imitate that now, if you know what I mean. But I only did that because I was into the music first, if you know what I mean. So when you're into something, you don't want to spoil it.
You respect
not
it
that.
differently.
Yeah, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've been to places where I've just picked up the mic and gone in, you know what I mean? Because I don't care what's been going on before, you know what I mean? Like,
This
whereas
is it,
this
yeah.
was a bit more like, oh no,
I can work with it.
I
You're
building
this,
something,
you know what
yeah,
I mean?
yeah.
And I can see the potential. We've got a lot of heads in different places as well. That was a new thing for me. Like, usually when you was into something, it was local, if you know what I mean. Yeah, garage.
I think a good way to explain it is like what a lot of people won't know were like the only person that was actually even allowed on the mic at Forward.
You
for
was
years.
actually the
Yeah,
first.
yeah.
because
He was the only dubstep MC at one stage.
Well, it was because Sarah wouldn't let no one else on the
exactly,
mic.
yeah.
It's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
she likes what you're doing,
yeah.
but if another MC
She
came
come
in
on,
and just
yeah.
spat bars and didn't
She'd
care,
knock the mic off
she
the
would be
soldier
like,
with.
turn
because
it
she
off.
could see
That's not
that they've just
respecting.
come in and not respecting what's
They're
going
just
on.
trying to
And
get
she's
the
big
attention on them,
respecting it. So yeah, that was always me.
And I
I,
think
I liked the music. So
in terms of a lot of MCs who did come into the space as well, like some come and go very quickly, but the ones that stuck around and actually like got to know the producers, the DJs,
That's
let the music breathe, were
Yeah.
the ones that were like almost allowed in by the scene and the sound. And I think a lot of other MCs just jumped on it like it was a grime set, which
Yeah.
was like, you know, my time, the DJ's background noise,
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
doing my thing.
Yeah,
that's it.
And at the dubstep events, it was
grime
more
is
like
that. So if they're from grime, they're thinking they're doing the right thing. Like, I remember emceeing with Skepta, and I had Skepta and Wiley next to me, yeah, and they was big on the respect of the music as well, like dubstep, and they would stand there and they saying to me, "How do you spit on this?" And
Yeah.
I'm going to them, "What are you talking? Like, you two are telling me that
can spit,
like,
yeah."
like, and they're like, "Yeah, but it's different vibe." I'm like, "Okay, forget the vibe.
They're taking their cues
I'm
from
like,
you.
What tempo is it? That's all
Yeah.
you need to be thinking. What tempo is this? And it's similar to what you're doing anyway, if not the same.
They're probably just hearing you and seeing what you're doing, and they're thinking, I never seen someone spit like that.
You see? And I'm only doing that because I like the music, if you know what I mean. So they would pick up the mic and literally stand there and don't know.
Do the odd word here and there.
And I'm like, what's
Remember we was going
on?
through the airport. Where was
They're
we
trying
going?
to imitate me. I'm like,
Yeah.
I should be up here trying to
Craze.
imitate you lot. Like,
Where was we at the airport? We all was, whoa.
Yeah.
We're walking, where was we going?
Holland.
We was going to do one show.
I think it
We're
was in
walking through
Amsterdam.
me and Crazy. All there was, whoa.
Well, yeah, it was Skipton, innit?
Turn around, Wiley.
Oh, Wiley.
It was
Skepta does that to me as well.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
I was saying, well, off camera, like, we made a tune, innit? Like, back in the day when Skipton was
and I was
living.
saying to him, that's my claim to fame when I talk about
Mate,
Skepta. I'm like, Skepta
worst
wanted to make
tune.
a tune with me.
We made the worst beat, but it
We
was
could actually
basically
put
based.
that track as the backing behind this.
It was
As the
based around his
as the
beat,
credits
his
come
spitting.
down at the end of the
Oh,
thing.
but- nah, mate,
we'd have
nah,
the
no one's
the
hearing that.
Plastician and Skepta track
Worst
never
He
come
said
out.
no.
No one's hearing
I've
it.
got it on tape somewhere.
You probably,
I
mate, we
have.
definitely
I
sent it to you.
got it.
I
We
definitely
sat
got it
there-
on tape somewhere.
You know, as a
I heard
producer,
it about 5 years ago when I was like, oh my God, I found it.
on the
It's gone
day we
again.
thought we had like
Yeah, I bet you
struck
did.
gold,
Yeah.
and then the next morning it was like, this ain't. This
Isn't that what we heard
the
last
beat is
night?
not good. Yeah,
Ah,
it sounds
someone's
like
changed it.
some general MIDI shit, bro.
You're
It's
thinking
like
that about Betty Boo,
mad.
weren't you?
Oh, wow.
I played that track.
I hated that tune.
I love that track.
I love Betty Boo. She's a lovely girl. Apparently, she was I've forgotten his
Big
name.
track
I'm gonna
that
say
was.
Ali G's cousin. What's his
Sacha Baron Cohen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
boom. It was her cousin. That
Was it?
yeah.
I sold loads of them
Probably.
tracks for you, bruv. Didn't get one drink out of that, son.
Did you? Nor did I. Imagine that.
Oh, welcome to the music industry.
Yeah, innit? High
Yeah,
five.
welcome. Nothing's changed.
Yeah. Do you know what though? I got a booking in Amsterdam out of that. It was on a compilation, on the Speed Garage compilation.
Oh, yeah.
That was out there, and they put on a big massive thing, and they got me out there. That was like 99 again.
98, 99
You know
it
what
was.
I mean? Like when no one went
Yeah.
going
One of them
on
first
abroad,
overseas,
I was
yeah.
doing it.
Yeah.
Hey, and I went Germany as well with that same thing for that.
Well, that-
release that I never got nothing for.
That takes me nicely into
the.
the next one, which is like, how did you feel when everything started to evolve, got bigger and a bit more mainstream, and suddenly you're playing out every weekend in the midweeks?
Finally, oh my God.
Nice.
I used to do hip hop back in the day. I've done jungle, but that was mostly bedroom. Garage, that's when I first kind of
Into the clubs, yeah.
you know what I mean? And then when it came to this, it was like, finally. You know what I mean? But at the same time, I'm still not doing what I think I could be doing, but you know what I mean? Finally. That
Yeah.
was my first feeling.
What about you, Hatch? What do you reckon?
It was nice. Luckily enough, I'd already been doing garage shows. You know, Twice as Nice, La Cosa Nostra, Sun City, and I'd already been travelling, doing Iron Appa and other places. So it was almost like I walked away from that and started saying fresh with everybody. So when Dubstep finally got to its place where we was actually flying around and we was doing it, I was like, thank fuck. Do you know what I mean? Because I was like, I didn't think we'd ever going to get there.
No.
And you know, I never walked away from you, but my garage career never got to Master Steps or Fonty or Slimsy or EZ or, you know, Mighty Liberty Lana.
Same, and I was doing
You know,
it
I never
maybe
got
as
to that
longer than
top
them.
spec where they was because I slowed down as I was climbing because I started working in the record shop and something else caught my attention. But I'd already seen what was happening. I'd already been involved and played at them shows. But then I was playing at Dubstep shows, you know, 50 people, 40 people, flying to Germany, you know, flying to Paris, to Ireland or up north and 50, 60 peoples. But then, you know, excuse me, it was like all of a sudden, I think it was DMZ at Mass that stepped it up. Because once DMZ at Mass...
You've got to say Dub Wars then, or whatever it's called.
In New York.
No, we've already said about Marianne, show her enough
Yeah,
love for,
that's
she
what-
opened the doors, but I mean, in regards to a venue being a big status and us looking back and going, oh shit.
I think one of the moments when I realised like, wow, it's becoming a like mainstream thing was actually like their midweek bookings on a Tuesday at Sheffield in
Tuesday
Tuesday Club. It's like student night is dubstep
Slammed,
night.
yeah.
Suddenly, we
it's
are
rammed
the
as well.
sound that all the students are into.
Yeah,
That's when
playing
you
at
realise.
Packed as well. It's not like
stuff.
it was empty. You'd get there and it'd be like, flipping
My
hell,
first
it's
couple of
packed in
bookings
there.
up there would be like room 2 with D&B in the main room, and it didn't take long before it flipped, and suddenly it was dubstep in the main room and dubstep in the little room as well, but like the locals, and they'd have like all of us lot up from down south, and
The softies.
you realise like, oh, you're playing a Tuesday in Sheffield, then you're on Wednesday you're in like Bristol,
Mate, I used to be
Thursday
doing,
you're in Manchester.
for a weekend.
Mad.
4, and that's like Thursday to Sunday.
That's it. Yeah, it was-
Sunday driving home. Like,
you imagine doing that now?
I've had a wicked weekend.
On
you know what I
fucking
mean?
Red
Like,
Bulls, you shaking. Drunk so many Red Bulls, he's like that.
staring at the window.
I'm like, you
Yeah,
might as well crack
that's
on
my
it, mate.
cocaine.
You're shaking
Red
that
Bull
much.
is my cocaine.
Goodness gracious, mate.
Mate, I couldn't imagine doing that many shows in a week now at this my age. I can't believe
I can still do it because adrenaline gets you through.
getting up and
If you're
driving on a
just
hangover.
going
Now I
home
can,
every
but
day,
I
you're
just
gonna
turn
fall
up 10 minutes
asleep by
before my
9
set.
o'clock.
Turn up 10 minutes before our set and we're gone now. Before we get there 2 hours early.
No,
crack
that's
on.
him. I've never been. Like
Did you ever get involved in the after parties and all that though? Because I was a nightmare for that.
One or two, no,
Yeah.
not too many.
me being on the mic, I have to. It's all right for you lot. You lot do a 1 hour and
we're
you lot are
gone.
done. Yeah,
He's
there's
there with the
times
bar
where I'm
staff at
doing
the end.
5 hours, yeah, and people come up to me the next night or the week later and they go, "Oh, how was the?" I don't know. I was on the mic all night. So as soon as it's done, I want to party now.
Yeah.
Yeah, but everyone wants to go home. And I'm like, my adrenaline is going through the
Yeah,
roof.
yeah.
Red Bull, Red Bull,
Yeah.
Red Bull.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, nah, it's done. You know how many times I come off the mic and I go, right, here we go.
Where are we going?
And then
Everyone's
I look
gone.
around and it's
Sweeping the
empty.
floor.
Everyone's
Do you know
already
what
gone.
are you?
Everyone's at the
I don't
afters.
think you lot would ever know. I can't even tell you. Because like I say, there was times I was doing 8 hours, 12 hours sometimes. Yeah, can you come early because we got so and so on? You know what I mean? Yeah. Oh.
It's mad.
And then
It is
I'm the guy
actually
that
mad.
don't get paid the same as everyone else, by the way. just want that out there as well.
We
turn
try
up-
equalising.
Mr. 8 hours.
We need to equalise it.
Oh, but you're the one that sleeps on the way there and the way back.
I wonder why.
Oh,
Wonder why.
and then when I pull over and say, "You
can
need
no
to-
longer wonder
Craig,
why
you got
I'll
to
be
drive, mate. You
sleeping
got to
now.
drive."
Yeah. And then I drive. And do you know what? I drive him home as well.
Yeah.
How about that?
Then I get out of my car, park it up, jump in the van, drive back. The
And
other
then
way.
I drive back. Oh, mate.
Do you think that when it was blowing up like that it influenced the sound back into the sound and everything became a little bit more mainstream as well? Because like naturally, it was like getting played
I'm
on
happy for
daytime
mainstream
radio and
because
stuff.
that means you're doing well. That's what all that means. When people go, "Oh, you sell out," no. You do what you normally do, yeah. But if it's popular,
Then it's popular, yeah.
that's it. You know what I mean? It's when people start changing to be popular.
Do you think it did change, though?
Yeah. I think the music changed.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
definitely feel
but
like it
had
shifted.
to. It couldn't stay how it was because it was only 50 people in the blooming
I guess
dance.
once you start getting like your music played on like your Radio 1s and that, and it's naturally you see other people that are your peers doing that, and you're like, I want a piece of that. I need my tune on the radio. How do I do that?
and
And I think
I
naturally
think
the whole
people
scene
have to
kind of
relate
like
to
trying
the
to do it.
music in it. So once a tune came about that they could relate to, that's when people jump on. You know what I mean? Until then, you're always on the outside, isn't it? You're just looking in like, oh, it's all right. But then as soon as you hear a tune, oh yeah, that's a bit of me. Right, that's dubstep, yeah? And that's what people used to say to me all the time. Like, well, that's dubstep.
Yeah.
But that doesn't sound like that.
And then obviously when it went over to the
I'm
States-
confused. Which
Oh,
one's
when it went to
dubstep?
the States, that killed us. That killed the UK sound.
But it shouldn't have. It
Well,
only
when it
killed
bec-
us
no,
because
Gov.
people gave up.
No,
Yeah,
no.
I'm telling you.
When it blew up in America, it's the same time that YouTube blew up, right? So what I'm saying is, when that blew up in America, they're 4 times the size of us. So when they
That's
put
right.
up a tune on YouTube, they get 1 million hits.
Yeah.
So when someone types in dubstep on YouTube,
Yeah, but why does that kill us then? I don't
because
understand
people that don't know dubstep and go, "Oh, I wonder what dubstep is." Let's go on YouTube and have a look, and it goes,
Yeah, that million,
They go, "Oh,
and that
we
a
don't
million
like
people.
that."
Yeah, that million people said that's dubstep. Yeah, I know, I get
Exactly.
it. But
That's what
this is why
happened.
I'm saying that people gave up. Yeah, because that being said, you're still there. We're still here to educate them. Yeah, because we're still here. We're still doing it. It's not like we gave up and went, "All right, cool, that's dubstep. We're not doing that no more." We actually still do dubstep as well, and we've been doing it longer than them. So for them to jump on and take something from you and then you just give up, that's where I said that's where we failed for me, because people kept going, oh, that's not dubstep, or
I think-
people, even now people walk up to us and say, this is not dubstep.
For a minute, like some of it was actually quite interesting as well. Like there was like
that 50,000 watts come out from
Matty G.
when Matty G and Noah, all that little firm, Noah D, Matty G, they was all coming out with some good.
Yeah, but
shit,
they was
mate.
keeping it like how we
It was
did
still
it. 'Cause
quite
they was
a British
listening.
vibe, yeah.
They was listening to us,
of course,
innit?
yeah.
So,
But
they
then I
just
guess, like,
recreated it there,
even
and
when-
then they took it off.
Even when it got really hard and went into the States, there was some bits. I think the main problem for me was that like in the UK, we would have tunes that were that hard. People won't realise there were tunes that hard. Like Coki's SpongeBob and all them, like they were probably harder.
Yeah.
But
Hard as well.
you'd hear that for one tune,
Yeah.
the lift off the dance,
Yeah.
and then you'd bring it back down,
Yeah.
and there'd be another moment like that
Yeah.
later on. But if you then when it went to the States, the main difference was it was like that for a
time.
whole hour.
Yeah.
It was like there was no like
There was no story.
there was no like deep one.
Yeah.
Let's like mellow it down. No vocal.
Yeah.
It was just like but
Full on.
drum, bass, no melodies for a little while.
No
like,
swing, no
And I think that
nothing.
was the
more
main.
people to
difference.
please.
I found it quite difficult
I
playing over
understand
there.
it because you only have to understand cultures to understand what music you're playing, for instance. So if you take that, what we're doing over there, which I would have said it's generally a UK vibe that we're bringing in it, which what is our UK vibe? House, garage, reggae,
Jungle.
jungle,
Grime.
like so all of those things for me is what we used to make dubstep with. Yeah, all of those things. You go to America, they don't have an underground scene, so they can only go on what they know, and what they know is you either grew up with Motown, hip hop, and that side of things, or it was rock, you know what I mean? So they only had basically the two to choose from. So when they did that, then they started making their dubstep from their influences, isn't it?
Yeah.
Which is those two vibes, which really, let's think about it. People like hip hop, they don't generally like dubstep, especially in America.
No,
Yeah?
no, it's super different.
Yeah. So over there, it's more the rockers that could relate to what they was hearing, because the
Mosh
bass
pits
riffs,
and that.
the bass riffs are like guitars, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah,
You know
yeah.
what I mean? And it sounds very rocky and da 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 da. So that's eventually was gonna take over. It's very easy if you just see. You know what I mean? So what all we had to do was either jump on that bandwagon or carry on doing our own thing.
And like let it kind of like fork in the road, basically. Yeah.
And don't keep saying it's not. It is our music that they're using, if you know what I mean. But they're doing it differently.
Doing their own version.
Yeah,
of it,
you know what I mean? And for me, every country should have been doing that, because then dubstep would still be in their countries.
Right.
Because you go to these places, I don't know, Sweden, and they say I speak to still a lot of people, obviously through over the years, and they're like, yeah, you know, dubstep's dead now, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, I'm not surprised, because you tried to do a UK thing over there. So
Didn't
who can
nurture your
really,
own scene.
who can relate to that? Like, if you're Swedish,
This is,
why
I guess,
would
the
you,
thing, innit? A
Yeah,
lot of the
why would you
American.
be listening to a UK thing? You'd be like, no, I want my influences.
Well, Eastern, like a lot of the American hubs that like kind of like really got into it and done it. They did have their own producers and their own labels and their own nights and that, and they're still doing that now.
Yeah, well,
you know, like
and those are
it's
the ones
still
that
there.
last, isn't it? The
They're
ones
still
that
there.
use their own influences,
doing that same kind of vibe,
doing their,
but they have their own set of producers, their own labels, their own nights, their own promoters.
I used to go to these different countries and tell them, like, they'd be like, oh, you know, we're really struggling. I'm like, I'm not surprised, because we struggled for years over here, like
yeah.
longer than you are struggling over here. You know what I mean? So I'm like, all right. So what I'm saying to them every time is, what's in your neighborhood? What's around you? You got to bring in basically what's around you to this music for you to get more people to like it, because you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah.
Because it's the people that are around you, you need them to come to the raves. So you need to involve them somehow, isn't it?
I don't think they understood. It was mad, but as well when we was going away, because they just assumed that they're going to throw a dubstep party, it was going to be slammed.
Yeah, yeah.
They didn't realise that we've already done 10 years graft to get where we are now.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we've turned up at your dance, you've only got 50 people here, but we was doing that for 5 years, 10 years ago. So it's not going to happen overnight. But
so
the ones
sorry,
we did play
man.
for, crazy.
It's not your
But how
fault,
many
but-
people did we play for? For many years, and we started playing for them with 50 people. By the time they're now running festivals. No, they don't book us. They're playing bloody hard ass. I'm joking.
Oh, that's classic.
Something like that. But yeah.
In terms of artists that are around now within the dubstep scene, what are like some of your favourites that are producing at the minute? What are the ones that you would say like we got to be looking out for?
Well, there's some new boys, isn't there? Hatcha's got some new boys.
Keeping them under my sleeve,
know, but he
boy.
doesn't even tell me.
I'll tell you after.
Listen to this.
I'll tell you after Fabric. I'm not doing it before then because I don't want all the producers and the DJs to be jumping on my new kids, right? So after Fabric on the 11th, I'll let my secrets.
Make sure you get down there.
I'll give off some alpha then. I think like I really like Hebby. I like FLO. I like Gloom and Fossa. Czar.
Well, apart from Hey, I know that.
Yeah, they're some of my favourite ones at the minute. I think.
See, this is where I feel old because I don't know anything.
Oh, I'll see you.
Do you know what the thing is? Like, there are some really good ones out at the moment, but that pisses me off. It's like, look, I released one track off of one kid. I think, right, fuck me, I just found this kid, he's banging. I think, right, yep, line him up, we're going to do this amount of release with him, blah, blah, get a little plan together, do one release with him. Next thing you know, another label post, oh yeah, we've got a release of this kid next week. I'm like, they just ain't got the clue after
we just
them nowadays,
into that old school mentality of like, sign them up,
sign them up,
sign a life away.
Yeah.
But no, yeah, that I think that's normal now, isn't it? I think everyone's kind of like they do their own thing. The whole idea of like rolling with your label is not as much of a thing.
There are loads of kids coming through, but there's still a lot of head honchos that have been there from day that are still repping hard, and the kids have still got quite a bit of way to go to test them. You know, the people like Jay Kenzo's and Distance, and you know, when you're going on that kind of levels of production and stuff, you know, some of these kids have still got a bit of way to go, but some of these kids are fucking sharp, mate.
Yeah, there's
some
good
that
stuff,
have only been
man.
producing for like 24 months. I'm like, well, you've been writing music for 2 years. I'm like, what?
Listen,
they're sidechaining and they're doing
YouTube
this and that,
tutorials
like,
done us,
YouTube
mate.
tutorial, mate,
YouTube.
is the one.
It's amazing, like the speed at which these kids pop up.
Yeah,
and,
it's
like,
brilliant.
the knowledge is deep, like, and all the little things that have offshot out. You can hear like, you know, what people like Lucy have done, and hear what she like. You can hear the influence in their music, and
straight away.
It's like hearing stuff like that is exciting as well. Even though like I wouldn't classify it as dubstep, you can hear that. Like,
you can hear
these
where
are
they've
people
got
that
their
have grown up
influences from,
listening
and
to
put
this.
their twist to it, you know.
And it's the way that like it's influenced, just like the way that you mix bass or use bass in a track is like. Before dubstep, we didn't really have that, like where the bass is the instrument. It's like, you know, like jungle and D&B, we heard it a bit, but when dubstep really took that, especially when we got like the mid-range end of the fit spectrum, it was like a riff. It was like the main riff was the bass line.
Yeah.
And like now we're hearing that in so many different genres and styles, and I think
which is good. It is good.
It's definitely like
It's different.
it had that impact, like globally. So just to close it out, what advice would you give to any new or young music producers trying to get into the scene and produce the sound?
Isn't it hard nowadays to give them advice? Do
You
know
almost
why?
don't want to, innit?
It's almost like you don't
Find
want to
your
because
way, be
they all know
honest
what
with
they're
yourself.
doing. And if they don't know what they're doing, like you say, they do a tutorial and they know what they're doing.
That's what I'd say. Like maybe that's the one piece of
Well,
advice I would give is like
only
the tutorials are there, but don't
Depends.
live them by
Follow
the
them
letter of
as
the
a
law.
lead, yeah.
Take like the technique, but put your spin
then
on it. Bring
put
your
yours,
influences in, and make something that's new and
Kids,
fresh.
Stop
Just
bringing
make
back
sure
some
you
swing.
love it. That's all
Give
it
us
is,
some rhythm.
isn't it? Just make sure you love it, because if you don't, and you're expecting, I don't know, to be famous and rich or whatever,
You're in it for the wrong reason.
then I mean, there is a way of doing that. I'm not saying don't do that. If you can do that, great as well. Bring me in. You know what I mean? But at the same time, you can't just be doing this just to think you're gonna make money and you're gonna be famous and you're gonna tour the world and da. Have the love for what you're doing first, so that way that will give you the longevity. Because I tell you now, it's a cutthroat game.
The thing
you
is
know
as
what I mean?
well, Craig, sorry to interrupt, that you find that people of our age, old bastards, but like we grew up and we kind of like fought our way to get somewhere because it was so much different in our era. You know, buying the records with your pocket money and doing this and whereas nowadays, I think you can literally get given the industry on a fucking platter overnight. You've only got to download Splice. You know,
it's
and
definitely the barrier of entry is a lot lower, but there's more noise. It's harder to cut through because there's like thousands
and
of
the
people
quality
doing it.
still comes through. You know what I mean? So again, you got to love what you're doing, innit? Because then you'll appreciate all sides of what you're doing.
It's like a lot of things in life, innit? If you can be honest to yourself and like learn to love yourself first. If you love your music, if you enjoy your music and you're into it and you want to play it and you want to share it, then you're probably like, that's going to come through in your music.
That's
and
it.
you'll have success eventually. Like, you know, obviously the quality of the music does matter.
That's it.
But if the authenticity is there with it, it'll cut through the noise a lot quicker.
That's it. Make sure you do have the quality as well, because
Of course.
that's what. That's
It's
what
always
makes all the
quantity.
difference.
It's the quality, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
Trust me, definitely.
Big time. Been a pleasure, not a chore.
We're not going to talk about the whole 140 situation. I'll leave that.
no.
I'll
It's
leave
dubstep.
that.
It's
Yeah,
dubstep.
It's
That's all
dubstep.
what it
Let's
is.
leave it there.
It's dubstep, yeah.
And we'll see you there.
140,
We'll see you.
We'll see you there.
Don't say 180.
I love dubstep.
Fabric.
Don't
I
say
love
I'm
dubstep.
going to play 176. That's dumb. It's dumb.
Craziest barred from Fabric. You won't even be there, actually.
Sorry,
so.
I'm done now. I'm done.
Fabric 11th of March. I love dubstep. We'll
I
see
love
you
dubstep,
all down there.
I
Rinse
said
FM.
it first.
Yeah.
It's been a pleasure.
Yeah.
Boom sound.
Whoa.